Welcome to the Predictive Pulse podcast. I'm Carlos Casas, CEO and Principal Analyst at Predictive Data Lab. We are your data science and media partner, and our team of experts are dedicated to providing strategic insights for data, research, and analysis. Our podcast explores the world of data and marketing analytics, helping you stay ahead of the curve. Join us on this journey to tap into tomorrow's insights today. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes as we embark on this data-driven adventure together. We love ChatGPT. We are going to be talking today, guys, on how AI isn't just ChatGPT. We have the full house today, which is awesome. This is exciting. So please, who do we have today?
Yeah, of course. I'm Jeb Stewart. I'm the lead data engineer at PDL. My job is making sure all the data for all this AI gets to where it needs to go.
Excellent.
My name is Oren. I am the lead data analyst here at Predictive Data Lab, handle a lot of the reporting after Jeb figures out the data.
Nice.
And my name's Nakoya Solomon. I'm a data analyst, so I work with Oren and Jeb to make sure that the data goes where it's supposed to go.
Excellent. Very nice. Well, welcome. It's very nice to have you guys here today with us. We're really going to focus on a hot topic, right? AI, and really trying to get the destination marketing area really to understand what exactly is AI. How does it come into play? Is all AI ChatGPT? Right. So, Jeb, why don't you kind of take us through what exactly is AI in the simplest form?
Yeah, totally. So AI at its core is solving problems with code, but in kind of a different approach than traditional code. Traditional code, you give the computer a series of steps to accomplish. Mm-hmm. You kind of know your inputs and you want to give it inputs, send it through these steps to get an answer, kind of like a math equation. With AI, though, instead, we know what constitutes a good answer, mm-hmm. and we know kind of what we can put into it. And we give the computer a series of steps that it can try, and it uses that to basically trial and error the inputs and work towards that like optimal answer.
Right.
So that's what AI is at kind of a bird's eye view.
Okay, excellent. So would you say, you mentioned the math equation, right? So in the simplest sense of the coding, mm-hmm. So 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
But we can tell AI, answers 4, figure it out.
Yeah, we can tell it 4 and figure it out, but we can give it options like we can say, hey, you can add numbers, you can subtract numbers, you can multiply numbers. And we then use, for supervised learning, we know the answer and we know the inputs and we basically test it. We say, here's a bunch of inputs and it just tries stuff. It's like, I'm going to multiply them and subtract them and then do all this. And then it's like, I got 3.9. And then we use like some sort of metric to say, okay, well, nice try, but you're 0.1 off. Let's improve, and it'll try something new. And then that's all part of this kind of iterative process to working towards a model that we'll ultimately use in production.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of a cool words there, model. You also mentioned the trial and error, the learning, right? Mm-hmm. So how does it all, right now people are using ChatGPT as a foundation for their AI experience, right? Mm-hmm. And everywhere we see now there's a form of AI. How do we simplify it so people can really understand, how can I use AI in destination marketing?
Yeah, totally. I think one of the big challenges we're facing in tech in general with AI is this kind of, we want this one solution fits all, and ChatGPT kind of feels like that without actually being it. Because at its core, it's kind of an autofiller. So it's like you're texting on your phone and it offers you the next word and you're like, yeah, that's right. But it's doing that to itself over and over and over. And the metrics that these are trained on are, how do I sound human? It's not, how do I be correct? It's, how do I output text that sounds like it was written by another human? And so as far as how do we use AI in very practical ways and towards destination marketing, is step one is to understand the problem. Like, in order to build AIs that do these things, we want to identify what problem are we specifically trying to solve within that space. And then we use that to come up with kind of that correct metric, which is, it may be something like, actually, this is perfect for the analyst, is like, what kind of metrics would we use to measure whether or not an AI is getting us towards our goals with destination marketing?
Absolutely. The way that I like to think about using AI for destination marketing is It allows us to elevate our analysis and planning for destination marketing. I'll get to the metrics in 1 second. We use AI for our destination marketing first to simplify the process of analyzing data. So many destinations are spending countless hours on just crunching numbers, synthesizing data, and getting it in a format that's readable. So we use AI to take that off the table. Now our analyst, Nakoya, and I are freed up for more insightful data digging. Now that we have our data, her and I can actually do the analysis and set those key metrics that you're discussing with the help of AI to enrich our data, enhance our models, and bring other predictive analytics that may have been extremely time-consuming or extremely costly to provide in the past, but now we can do it at the click of a button. So in terms of AI and destination marketing, all it does is elevate our effectiveness and our efficiency in providing effective results and getting people to those destinations.
Right. So as an example, right, many times we think that AI is going to just take over and do all of these things, and we don't need anybody else, right? We don't need analysis anymore, or we don't need decision making anymore. What are your thoughts on that, Nakoya?
I think you really still need people, because you can teach a machine to become smarter, but you're still going to need a person there to make the machine become smarter, because you're feeding it data. It's not just giving itself data. It has to get data from somewhere. So I think we will still have to be around in order for these machines to grow. But, I don't think it's going to grow smarter than we are. So we just have to continue to strive to do the best that we can. Like, we build the personas ourselves. We look at the data that comes in, and we look at who needs to be targeted to go to these destination markets, so we can, build a better brand and better product for those places.
Right. So go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that, because Nakoya brings up some really important pieces of this as far as like leveraging the AI with people, and the people doing people work, basically, is what I like to call it. But it's like you have this idea of general and narrow AI,
right?
And that's such a undiscussed topic, basically, is like, because the idea of a general AI is a self-improving AI that basically can do anything that a human can do, where you basically you could put it in a college classroom, have it take a class, and then be an expert on that topic. And that's where, if that exists, the world doesn't look anything like what it looks like now. And then a lot of the questions that we're approaching kind of become a moot point, because you can throw computing power at it and have it solve the problems, and it talk to the people, and it do all the work for you. And that's sci-fi stuff at this time.
Right.
And so within the scope of how do we apply AI in ways that are meaningful and impactful, we use narrow AI. And this is where we have very specific targets for it. And we have it focus on doing work that is specifically unfeasible for humans.
Right.
So we may have a table with 1.8 billion rows of data, and with 30 columns and all these inputs. And it's like, I can't hand that off to Oren and Nakoya and be like, hey, can you guys just comb through this real quick?
Please don't.
And so instead we identify one specific question that we can take that data, train a model on, and then hand that off to Oren, and like you were saying, get us to a much further starting point.
Right.
So rather than starting from raw material, we're handing them refined material, and then they're able to leverage that into something even greater.
Yeah. So explain that a little bit further, though, because I think that's where, as everyone is learning more about AI, and it's become a keyword, right? It's become the trendiest word to use right now, but no one is using general AI. No one is talking about narrow AI. So explain that a little bit further. Are we using right now currently general AI? Is that
general AI? And no, absolutely not. Like I said, that's you would throw some of the world's greatest problems at general AI. You'd be like, how can we solve cancer?
Right.
How do we crack fusion energy? That's the kind of stuff we'd be using general AI for.
Right.
And other things, of course, but that's the thing. It's general.
Right.
It's transferable knowledge that is built at a faster rate than we as humans can.
Right.
Sci-fi stuff.
So narrow AI then, how does that come into play?
Yeah, so this goes back to it's really just a different style of programming, where we don't know the steps to get to the answer, but we maybe know a series of, not steps per se, but operations that it can take, and it's different combinations of those operations that get us towards the answer. And I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but the idea again is you have a very specific metric that you're trying to optimize for. And so like, let's say it is something like, how many people can we get to come to this destination? That's the kind of thing we would look at. We would say, okay, well, what are different ways that we can look at people and understand people and what drives their motivation to travel?
Right.
And we take qualitative data and we turn it into quantitative, and we take quantitative data and we put it into these models, and we pick the correct model for the correct question we have. And then we train that model and iterate, and then we hand that data off to the analyst, because this is a huge part of this loop with narrow AI is we need them to improve the AI, and then the AI provides them insight, and then they use that insight to improve the AI. And all the time they're creating a more and more refined process to do a very specific task.
Right. Awesome. So, Nakoya, how are you currently using the AI function to improve the analyst workload?
So I'm using it to describe what's coming into us. So just to make sure that the input, the data from the company or the clients that we use, that it comes in properly. And so once it goes over to Oren, he can see what they inputted, what were the best markets to hit, what are the best personas to hit for basically like budget friendly to high end spenders, or like the demographics that they may want to go to or where they live. So that's how I'm using the data to kind of push towards Oren so he can build that better persona so we can target whom we need to target.
So can you give us a kind of a easy example to follow? So obviously the AI, how is that helping specifically?
It helps to optimize what we're looking for. As far as pulling in, let's say someone wants to come visit San Antonio. We want to know specifically where they're coming from and how to best get them here. So we analyze the data that comes in and see what kind of places they like to visit. And when they come to San Antonio, what places do they want their family to visit? So it's just like finding that niche that they want to hit. And so we kind of use the AI to break that down in order to target them the best, to get them the ads and things they need in order to get them here, to get here.
Okay, but how does the AI function in that? Can you give us an example on that?
Okay, the AI functions in that it just kind of dwindles down and narrows to what we need it to be.
And I can expand on that just a little bit in terms of when we do that persona research and things like that to segment. We really love using the AI to, again, take out the legwork of synthesizing all the data that Nakoya is talking about. When she's pushing data to me, it's already been synthesized, cleaned, transformed, and put in a very nice package by our AI. And then she's able to go in, find insights, and press that on to us. And then again, we can use our AI for that second stage where we actually will enrich now that clean, transformed data with demographic behavior, socioeconomic behavior, to give the client a much clearer picture of who's really coming to the destination, answer those tough questions.
So a question would be, if the AI wasn't there, right, how long would this process normally take, Oren?
Well, I can speak from experience, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers can too. Excel is a very, very slow platform. As you try to weed through a table with 1.8 billion columns, I think I might have passed away by the time I finished it. So in short, it cuts my time probably by 90%. I have to do none of the manual legwork in terms of cleaning, synthesizing, and formatting that data in a way that's readable and analyzable. And the fun part here is we get to blend art and science. The AI takes care of that menial, science-based need to clean this data and lets the analysts like Nakoya and I actually apply the art of destination marketing, where we have industry expertise, where we understand what the client needs, and then apply that to the analysis and focus all our time there, because that's where we drive results. That's where we see impact. We don't drive results or impact by combing through, gigabytes of data looking for the right columns and the right headers. So it frees our time up to elevate that analysis.
Awesome. So, Jeb, when it comes to the AI technology or the capability, is this something that is unique, or can you go into detail as to how does it come together?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, AI is just a tool in its current state. Like we've talked about generally, maybe it'll stand on its own someday, but at the end in its current form, it's just a tool. In the same way that like all technology that allow us to have the world we live in is leverages tools to get there. We don't go out, I want silverware, I don't need to go mine iron anymore.
Right.
Somebody else is doing that, and they're not doing it by hand. They're doing it with machineries, and then there's smelters, and then there's shipping industry. It's like AI it's no different than any of that, where at the end of the day, there's a person driving that ship. There's a person operating that machinery, and it's allowing individuals to do so much more than they could on their own.
Right.
And that's how we use it personally, and that's how it can be used, is just to do more with less, be more efficient, be more like, and if that efficient piece is huge, because Nakoya, you mentioned targeting people, like that has kind of been used in like a dirty way in a lot of cases. And that's not the purpose. Like, that's not why we're trying to do it. It's not trying to be manipulative.
Right.
It's trying to identify who actually wants what we're putting out there. Right. We want people to have a good experience, because it doesn't matter if we send you to a city if you don't have a good time. You're not going to tell others about that. Your life isn't going to be enriched. You're going to spread your displeasure with other people around you, which then feeds back into us and our system. And so that's where we just want to put the resources where they're going to be the most useful. And that's what AI allows us to do, because there's a lot of people out there.
Right.
We're trying to reach out to these enormous markets. We've got the amount of data being generated is unfathomable, and it just couldn't be processed. You couldn't throw 1,000 people at it and process this data.
This is something that I think is very important for destination marketers to understand, right? Is the amount of data, right? Even a small destination, that example of the 1.8 billion rows, 30 columns, that's a table. That's just one data source. Is that correct?
Oh, that is one piece of one source for one client.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're trying to do this on your own, what do you recommend?
On your own, identify your problem. That's step one, because again, we really want this Swiss Army knife tool, like, because it's a cornucopia of opportunity, but right now it doesn't exist. Right. And so to use AI effectively, you need to identify at your most granular level, what's your objective, and then understand also, is that the right objective? Because you might build all this and all these tooling, have all these people, and you might be going after the wrong thing. Maybe you are going after quantity, and you might be sending, for destination marketing, you might be sending quantity to a place that doesn't have the infrastructure to support it.
Right.
And you need to understand that, and understand that these AIs, they're not intelligent. They're optimizing for a metric. And so without that intelligence, they're never going to see the bigger picture. And that's, again, why the analysts are critical in this.
Right.
Like, one does not exist without the others. You guys can't process this data without AI, but the AI is useless without you guys to steer it and direct it and guide it and improve it.
Right. So that's a great point, right? I mean, it's an environment that we're creating.
It's an ecosystem.
Right? Yeah. So when it comes to that, and people are using ChatGPT specifically, what type of AI is that then?
So that's a large language model. And that is basically, like I said kind of earlier, is that it's a auto predict, like, what's the next word. Now, it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, and I don't want to be reductive in like dismissing the colossal accomplishment that is ChatGPT and large language models. Like, they're laying the groundwork for so many great things. But in a lot of cases, they're just not the right tool for the job. And so people are using them, and it's like, oh, you want to write content that feels like organic. Okay, a large language model, that makes sense to use. But you want to like throw in a bunch of data and have it like spit out a summary of the data. I mean, unless you custom trained the model to do that, it's guessing at words that it thinks you're gonna like. And that's actually a piece that a lot of these models are trained on, is an emotional response. And so when people are labeling the output of the data, they're saying, how does this make me feel? Does it make me feel distrustful? Does it generate outrage? And a lot of these models are trained with the idea of like telling you what you want to hear. And so when you're in a business environment, do you want to surround yourself with a digital yes man?
Yeah.
No, you want somebody to tell you like accurate, factual things that you can act on.
Yeah. So don't use it to say, "Hey, chat, can you build me a persona for my destination?" Then
Exactly. Unless again, you trained it to do specifically that, but then you need that human oversight to understand.
Yeah.
Does this fit? Does this work?
Now, I think all of you guys kind of mentioned a little bit of the ethics behind it, right? So how do we take into account ethics when it comes to AI? What are your thoughts on that, Oren?
When it comes down to ethics, in terms of new AI and new technology in general, the main thing that we always focus on is consumer privacy. How do we enact and use this technology in a way that's resourceful and efficient while still being above bar in terms of ethical and compliant ways of handling user data? There's a lot of different technology out there right now, a lot of different black boxes that'll spit out answers. What I always like to say about the AI that we have generated and worked with is we've built it with a lot of humility in mind. We've kept fundamental principles in place to enhance data governance. We've kept fundamental principles in place when it comes to user privacy and how we use that data and how we store that data. And then in terms of actually using AI to influence marketing, it goes back to what Jeb said. We are not trying to just mass market and spread things that don't need to be spread. We're trying to find people who fit our demographic, who fit our target, who want the service and use our technology to effectively reach out to them.
Yeah, we try to stay away from the predatory marketing because you just don't want to hit people that don't want the information. So that's what we use, our technology to do. Just target those who want to be targeted so they can get this information.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Jeb?
Oh man, we could have 2 or 3 more episodes just on the ethics of it because it's such a multidimensional component. There is, like Oren said, there's the privacy component. There's a lot of data out there, and I think there's more data than people realize in terms of like really uncomfortable stuff. There are companies tracking where you are 24/7 using your phone. That data exists. It's being used to target you. A big part of what we do is we identify like what makes us uncomfortable. Like identifying like as people we live in the same world as our customers. What would we not want done with our own stuff? And it's like, I don't want to be tracked. That's a big piece of this. And building the technology around that allows us to do it from a very empathetic standpoint. And I think that's what a lot of the ethics boil down to, as long as you've built a team around empathy and around the fact that we all share this environment, then you can set in a lot of processes in place to like assess and validate and say, are we doing this right? Are we getting data that's too granular? And when we're forced to, when there is an environment where we need a certain level of granularity to accomplish goals, how do we protect that? And how do we protect that in a way that goes above and beyond what's required of us? Because frankly, the data landscape, as far as like the legal components and the regulatory components goes, particularly in America, it's embarrassing. And we need to do better than that for the people and for the long-term like success of everyone.
Right.
And again, it goes back to not just, and sorry, I'm kind of going on this, but
no, go for it.
A big piece of this isn't just where do we get the data? How do we use the data? Because that can be used in a really positive manner. That can be used to elevate the quality of everybody's life, like bring the standard of living up for literally everyone. It's making sure that that's actually what we're using the models for. And because there's opportunities everywhere. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen documentaries like on Netflix and whatnot that talk about how AI is being used to manipulate people,
right?
How to trick them into doing things. And that's just not what we use AI for here. And frankly, it shouldn't be used in those capacities because already people are struggling enough and already people are overwhelmed with the amount of noise and fatigue in the environment.
Right.
It's like, no, again, it's a tool.
Right.
The AI isn't evil. It's not good. It's not bad. It's how we use it that defines our ethics.
Right.
So that's just the question that needs to be asked in every environment that uses AI is what buttons are we pressing as far as humanity goes?
Right. Yeah, and I think in regards to leading, the AI components within the destination marketing. Destination marketing in itself stands for improving the quality of life of people through travel, right? I mean, we all work in this space because we just absolutely love to travel.
Absolutely.
Right? And we know that improves the quality of life. So making sure that we take a leadership stand really on the course of the practice of an ethical way of using AI, really to improve the lives of our customers, but improve the lives of the people that are traveling, right? And I think that's an instrumental piece of that. Now, we touched on a black box. And this is something that it gets really tricky for a lot of marketing directors, CEOs to, when they see something like this, right? An AI or presented an AI, it just sounds like a black box. What are talking? How can we help maybe mitigate some of that?
So a big piece of that is using like what I'll call foundational models. Rather than using something like, we keep going back to an LLM just because it's in the public face, but it's kind of a black box, like actually taking the time to understand, like, how are these words like being converted into numbers to be able to run through this model? It's like, it's confusing, like, to anyone but probably the experts who built these things. And so focusing on models that have a certain amount of explainability and understandability to them, and educating the analysts in how, like, the conclusions being drawn from the AI are done so. And so by using foundational models, one, they're plenty powerful on their own. You don't need, like, at the end of the day, these LLMs require insane amount of, like, server compute. And it's like, we don't need that. A lot of our models can be run on a laptop, and they're straightforward enough. Again, they're leveraging what computers do well, which is crunching large amounts of numbers. But the models themselves are understandable enough that, like, Oren understands these models, Nakoya understands these models, and then they're able to take that understanding and talk to, like, the C-suites, and they're able to talk to the clients, and they're able to talk to the non-technical people and say, like, look, it's kind of like this. Here's an analogy for how this model is getting to where it does, and here's how I know that it's meeting up with the metrics that we're setting out.
Right. Can you guys give us an example on the type of models that currently are being used?
The type of models that we're currently using, forecasting. We use forecast models. We want to predict, if somebody bought something last year or went to a trip last year, are they most likely to go back? So, we try to forecast on, what their decision is going to be later. So we got the forecasting model.
Another model we use is our clustering models. We have clustering models built within our AI system that, again, based on the variables we're inputting, will spit out a large number of clusters for a destination. And from there, we'll refine with our data analysis team to get to that target persona. So we do a lot of clustering with our AI.
So in regards to destination marketing, what do you guys see the future of AI? Jeb, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it goes back to efficiency. I think that, like, personally, I currently live in Hawaii. We have a very interesting relationship with tourism. And if you talk to the locals, it's a very negative thing. But at the same time, the money, frankly, built the economy for it. And now most of that money gets funneled out of Hawaii. But there are certain aspects of it that do ultimately benefit the state. So there's this kind of environment there where there's a balance to be struck. And that's one thing AI can help us do, because it can help us deal with some of the complexity of all this. Because anyone who's explored, like, the tourism industry in Hawaii from an analytical side of things knows how complicated it is. That, like, there's monies changing hand left and right. There's like, how does it affect the local housing market? How does it affect traffic? How does it affect our infrastructure? And as we define each of these individual problems, we can basically, what I've said to our team before is, we can productionize our analysts' expertise. When they identify a problem, when they identify a metric, and they do that iterative process of build a model, get feedback, build a model, get feedback, we end up with something that, again, can do, like, one piece of the puzzle. We build enough of those pieces, and we can build this balanced ecosystem where maybe we're not sending 100,000 peoples just to one city at the same time of the week every year. We look at the bigger picture. we say like, can we shuffle some people around? Can we direct people to this area has been struggling, but they've been really growing and they've been investing in their infrastructure. This is becoming like a up and coming tourist destination. How do we direct people there so that they can enjoy that and keep the entire system sustainable for the long term, not just the short term profit?
I think, again, it just comes down to elevating how effective we are in marketing to destinations. By using and leveraging AI effectively, we can cut out so many of the wasted man hours in terms of just the menial tasks that AI can knock out for us. And then Nakoya and I can, again, leverage that industry expertise to truly influence destinations to make better decisions, spend less money, and attract the right tourist, like Jeb's just discussed, to their destination.
Yeah.
And then it'll help, the destination to actually optimize on their ROI when we have correct people come in and, flood the city as to the aspect that they want and, bring in that revenue that they need.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. We are out of time officially. Jeb, Oren, and Nakoya, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys here. I think this is a very important topic and one that more than likely we will talk about again, considering the fact that just this is such a big piece within our industry. And obviously everyone is trying to harness the power of AI. But again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we appreciate the time.
And thank you for having us. I'm looking forward to talking some more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to stay updated on future episodes, be sure to subscribe to the Predictive Pulse podcast. Whether you're a data enthusiast, marketer, or business leader, our aim is to provide you with the latest media and analytics trends to help you tap into tomorrow's insights today. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future topics, feel free to reach out. We value your feedback and are always eager to hear from our listeners. Stay ahead of the curve with the Predictive Pulse podcast.